Hello, everybody. So I am actually recording this on June 19th, which is a Sunday, and that is Juneteenth and Father's Day. And I'm live streaming this into my Facebook group, which I don't normally do podcast recordings or lives on Sundays. So I just wanted to say hi if people are watching me live and they might just be like, what is she doing? But I was actually feeling really inspired to come record this episode. This is actually around a conversation that I find myself having with people over and over and over again. And I actually got a message about it this morning. And I was like, you know what? I've talked about this many times on the podcast. I don't know that I've done an entire episode dedicated to it. So I thought that that could be really useful for a lot of people. And I also just want to say that this is something I've absolutely had to deal with myself. And so I'm going to be sharing, I kind of came up with, a couple of different reasons. I think like 5 different reasons that imposter syndrome really comes up for a lot of people. And I want to cover those reasons. And I also just want to kind of start by talking about what imposter syndrome actually is. So I think it can be defined in a lot of ways. And I think that we actually experience it all in many different ways. I kind of define imposter syndrome from the perspective of your thoughts, like, who am I to, or who am I to say, right? Like, it's just like this not good enough feeling, right? Or not feeling ready enough, or prepared enough, or knowledgeable enough, or qualified enough, or anything that is not enough, right? That's how imposter syndrome, from my experience, both with myself and with my clients, has typically shown up, right? And it shows up for people at all different stages of business in many different ways. And for coaches who are new, right, who maybe have not taken clients yet, or they're just getting into the industry, or they have, I don't know, they're charging more than they ever have. Like, there's so many different things that can bring up imposter syndrome, and it has many different shapes and faces and forms. And guess what? It doesn't ever really just go away. It just evolves as you do, and it starts to show up in slightly different ways. And the point in the conversation that I want to have today is I really just truly want to normalize this experience for people. So especially when it comes to like the coaching work that I do with my clients, often pretty much every week I'm having conversations with them about all different types of mindset challenges that entrepreneurs, particularly online coaches, have. And the reason that I like to have those conversations, and I like to have them really frequently, is because normalizing the mind and the mental challenges is one of the most important things that I can do for people. And the reason for that is because so many people think that what they are experiencing is unique, right? Like, they get this imposter syndrome and they just think that it's them and it feels really real, when actually it's just a really super normal thing, right? Other people might think that they're the only ones who are scared, right? They're the only ones who are scared to do this. And that's simply not true. So funny. I swear, I swear 95% of people who sign up to work with me in one of my coaching programs, one of my, like an initial coaching program, they will say something to me in like when they're getting signed up, or right around the time they're getting signed up, they'll be like, I'm so nervous, but I'm so excited. And that's really, really normal, right? Because the fear and the uncertainty and the doubt, that is part of entrepreneurship. And that's what creates that nervousness, right? And then there's, of course, the excitement, because what about possibility? What if your dreams could come true? What if you could create this incredible business and have the life that you only dream about up until now? All of that is like, it's completely normal, right? So imposter syndrome, it is one of the, I would say, we're going to just call it what it is. It's a mindset challenge, right? It's a belief system challenge, because if you believed that you were good enough and qualified enough and worth enough, then it wouldn't come up for you. But you're human and there's very few humans that feel that way about themselves, right? Entrepreneurs are not. And so let's maybe talk a little bit about let's say like the 5 different areas that I most commonly see imposter syndrome come up for people. And you have to remember the majority of my newer clients are either brand new startup online coaches, or they're transitioning online for the first time, or they're only making maybe a little bit of money each month and it's not very consistent. Those are kind of my initial clients. And then I work with clients beyond that into my mastermind where they're working toward 20, 30, 40, $50,000 a month. And I will tell you, it doesn't matter how much you make. Okay. Cause I have a multiple 7-figure business. It doesn't matter how much you make. Imposter syndrome, in my opinion, is not something that ever goes away. It's something that you learn to navigate. Okay. And here's the thing about imposter syndrome is it's a feeling that you have based on thoughts about yourself. I'm going to say that again. Imposter syndrome is the feeling you have based on thoughts about yourself. That's all it is. Okay. So if you can get really clear on what thoughts you are having that is giving you that feeling of imposter syndrome, you can actually start to rewrite some of those narratives. And that's a really, really important thing. And part of what's going to help you move through imposter syndrome as well is simply just time in the game and learning to trust yourself. Because imposter syndrome is definitely a reflection of some struggles around self-trust. And whether it's like showing up consistently, whether it's understanding how to build a business, whether it's getting clients results, like so many different things, right? And that's normal if you've never done something before. So that leads us to the first thing that actually causes imposter syndrome for people is if you're just new or you don't have experience. So I'll share some of my stories through this as well. But when coaches are just getting started and they have their first clients, of course you're going to have imposter syndrome. You're going to be like, I don't know if I could do this. I don't know if my clients can get results. Do I know what the heck I'm talking about? Right? All of that's going to come up and it's completely normal. That certainly came up for me when I first started personal training. It came up for me again when I opened my boot camp and I, wanted to help middle-aged women lose weight. It came up for me again when I started doing business coaching in the fitness industry. I was working for another company. I was doing it for someone else. I'd only been in business a few years myself at that point. And I was like, gosh, do I really know enough? And then it came up for me again when I was starting Authentic Conversion. And I was like, okay, I've built and sold a successful brick and mortar business. I have done fitness business coaching, working for another company for 3.5 years. But now this is me. It's my product. Am I enough? Is what I know enough? Is it good enough? Is it going to work for people? Is it going to get them results? And so anytime you're doing something new for the first time, whether you're completely new to business and coaching, or you're just doing things differently from how you've done them before, imposter syndrome is a real thing, right? And it's just a reflection of your lack of experience because you don't have the evidence yet that you can create the thing that you are wanting to create or that you're telling people that you can help them create for themselves, right? The transformation, their results. So that's completely normal. If you are someone who is just getting into coaching or you're changing the way you're doing coaching. And also I will say, I see imposter syndrome come up a lot for particularly with fitness coaches when they are only used to servicing people in person and then they start to coach online. It can absolutely be reflected there again. So I just want to say that if you are new to doing it in whatever way you're trying to do it, that's bringing up that imposter syndrome, welcome to the club. I literally cannot think of anything that is more normal than that. Okay. You've never done it before. Of course, it's going to create those feelings for you. Okay. Now, another thing that I see consistently bring up imposter syndrome is lack of personal worth and value. Now, this doesn't mean you don't have confidence. It doesn't mean you think you suck and you're worthless. Okay. Because I'm not saying that at all. Lack of personal worth and value in the context that I'm talking about is where you don't have enough perhaps experience, but it could be something else to where you feel like people should pay you good money to work with them, right? Because you're new. And you see a lot of newer coaches or people who are, creating new programs and delivering services in a different way. Like I was talking about before, you see them really slash prices and underprice themselves and undercharge for services. And that can create, and that's really a result of that imposter syndrome, we'll say, right? Because they have to do some proving first. They kind of tell themselves, oh, I need to figure out if I can do this. I need to validate it. And maybe there's a little bit of truth to that, right? Because it's part of building your trust in yourself and building trust in your process and really believing that you can help your clients get results. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you struggle with that kind of personal worth and value and charging what you should be charging for your services based on the transformation and how you're helping people, then that is just another form of imposter syndrome, and also a really normal one. I have had to go through that at every stage of building my businesses. I still go through that to some regard, right? I mentioned in my last podcast episode, launching this new certification program I have called the 7-Figure Business Coach to help people do what I did, which is transition out of their service-based field of specialty and into business coaching. And I've had to go through kind of that, like a whole new level of imposter syndrome. And I've been able to generate over $5 million in 4 years in my business. And it still comes up, right? Anytime you're doing something new or different, that personal worth, that value, that am I qualified? Do I know enough? Like all of it comes up because we are humans. Okay. And again, I think there are probably a few personality types where maybe that doesn't happen, but I think for most of us it does. Okay. Now, another thing, and this is similar to the last one, but slightly different. Another thing that I think brings up a lot of imposter syndrome for people is just money mindset and perceptions about money. So, for example, right, I tell people when I talk about creating signature online coaching offers that their coaching offer needs to be, if it's, let's say, 10 or 12 weeks, it needs to be a minimum of $1,000 price point on that program. And I have other episodes where I've talked about the what, the why, the how. I think just a couple of weeks ago, one called Lucrative Packaging and Pricing for Online Coaching. So you can check that out. But for a lot of people, they have, like, when they hear that number, when they think about charging $1,000 plus for their services, again, it brings up all of that imposter syndrome. And I think part of it actually has to do with something that is adjacent to that, which is how we perceive money, how we perceive selling, how we perceive money exchanges between us and a potential client. And I know I used to have a lot of stuff around that. And I would think to myself, oh my gosh, like I don't want to take money from people. And I had these beliefs that if I took from someone, if someone paid me for my services, that somehow they would have less, or that it made me bad, or that it made me greedy, or it made me something that I didn't want to be. And so you want to just investigate if this is feeling like something that you might be experiencing. What thoughts are you creating around money mindset, perception when it comes to actually accepting money for your services? And also, a lot of the coaches that I work with, they say things to me like, well, I would never spend $1,000 on a, let's say like a health coaching program, or $2,000 on a health coaching program. And here's the thing, it doesn't matter if you would or if you wouldn't, because that's probably not your problem, right? Like if you're a health coach, you probably don't need to spend $2,000 or $1,000 on a health coaching program because you kind of got that dialed in, right? But coaches come and they spend a couple $1,000s with me on my business coaching programs because they don't know how to build the business and they want support with that. And that's what I've done as well. And so this is a really important thing to understand, that just because you wouldn't spend a certain amount of money on something doesn't mean someone who actually has that as a major pain point in their life doesn't mean that they won't. And it doesn't mean anything bad about you when you charge people money for your services and when you charge them high dollars for your services, right? Because you have to remember the transformation that you're offering for people. So if you're a weight loss coach, what is it like if you help someone lose 30 pounds? As a business coach, I have helped so many people go from startup $0 to a multiple 6-figure online coaching business with freedom that they never thought they would ever see in their entire life, right? And so you just have to remember the value of the problem that you're helping people solve. And that can, over time, start to shift that money mindset. And part of what's going to shift that as well is kind of what I was talking about in the beginning also, which is just time in the game and consistency in selling and getting great feedback from your clients and those kinds of things. So you will move through that, but don't let it stop you in the beginning. Don't let any of these things stop you in the beginning, because this is going to feel big and scary and real and overwhelming and all the things. Okay. The next ones, there's 2 more I want to talk about, is I hear this all the time from coaches where they feel like they are not good enough. They're not perfect enough to help other people, right? So I have had a lot of coaches work with me over the years who are in progress with their own journeys, right? I've done a whole podcast episode. My weight has fluctuated up and down. And I have had many clients who were still on some part of their journey, or maybe they had, been quote unquote super fit and then they gained a little bit of weight, or like whatever the case may be. We get this idea that as a coach, we have to have all the answers and we have to be perfect ourselves and we have to lead by example and all of that, right? And yeah, I think we should be practicing what we preach, but we're also humans and we can't be perfect all the time. And here's the thing is, unless maybe you're like, I was going to say, unless you're working with like bodybuilders, but even bodybuilding coaches are not perfect, right? Like they're not in season all the time. So no one necessarily wants or needs a perfect coach. And in fact, if you are so perfect, it can actually be, it depends on who your market is, right? But it could actually be a detractor for some people because they feel like, oh my gosh, this girl, this guy, they've just got it together so much. They don't struggle. They're not going to understand me. And that's not necessarily true because there are many coaches who are in great shape. And then there are other coaches who are still in their journey. And the people that you are right for, your soulmate clients, don't care whether or not you're still in progress. They don't care whether or not you still have some of the same struggles as they do. And in fact, they will often appreciate that you have some of those same struggles because again, it makes you more relatable. And it's kind of like you get to be on the journey together, which is a really, really powerful thing. So yes, are there some, online coaches that are like quote unquote perfect, super lean, whatever? Yes, of course. And are there many who aren't? Absolutely. Does one person's lack of perfect body disqualify them from being able to help someone else? Absolutely not. Absolutely not, you guys. So if you are in judgment of yourself where you're like, you know what, I just don't think I'm there. Like, how are people going to trust me? How are they going to believe that I can help them get results? It's not about you. Okay. Stop making it about you. It is about them. And here's the thing is I just want to say one more thing about this. We are humans. We struggle, right? I absolutely still struggle with my nutrition. That has always been the hardest thing for me. Actually, I won't lie. During COVID, I really struggled with all of it, like workouts, nutrition, like during the lockdown periods and all of that. It was all terrible. But I still struggle with nutrition to this day. Like I like junk food. I'm not usually motivated to cook. Like, so it's always been a challenge, and it's okay if you still experience those challenges as well. And you also know for yourself and for others how to get the results, how to make the changes, what we should be doing. And you can absolutely coach and teach that to other people. Okay. Now, the last one that I just want to touch on is this whole idea of comparison, right? They always say comparison is the thief of joy, but we do it all the time anyway. We are constantly comparing ourselves. And that is simply not useful. It's not practical, it's not good. And here's the thing is there's people who have been doing what you want to do for many more months, many more years. I always use this analogy with my clients when they're first starting my program or at any place in the program. I kind of like the analogy of like running a quarter mile, right? Running a 400-meter race. Now, pretending that the 400-meter mark is the destination. It's where we all want to get to, right? And maybe we all define that destination differently, but let's just say it's like the collective destination. It's the big goal. Now, someone coming into my program might literally be on zero. They're on 0 meters. Someone else is on meter 20. Someone else is on meter 200. Someone else is on meter 355. Okay. And so not everyone is at the same place in their journey. So comparing yourself and your ability to help people get results and your experience and literally anything that you are doing that makes you feel less than, that brings up that imposter syndrome for you and where you're comparing yourself to other people, none of that is helpful. None of it's useful. And none of it's actually like even relevant if you actually think about it. Okay. Because remember in the beginning, I said that imposter syndrome is simply it's a feeling that we create for ourselves based on thoughts that we are having about ourselves, right? You've got this circumstance, which is, let's say I want to be an online coach that helps people with X, Y, and Z. Then you think about it and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not there myself. I'm not good enough. I'm not worth that much. This person's been doing it so much longer than me. How could I outprice this person? And all of this stuff comes up, right? So the best thing that you can do, especially when you're in that point of comparison, is just get real with yourself, like about all of it, just about all of it. Okay. is this actually true? What else could potentially be true? Is this actually a helpful thought for me? Or is it something that my brain is just doing? You might have heard me talk on the podcast before about how your brain likes to make up scary stories and lies for you all the time. And that's just what imposter syndrome is, right? It's part of that thing that your brain is doing that is designed to keep you safe and to keep you from doing something new and different, because your brain doesn't like when you do something new and different. So there's so many things that go into this. And just remember that if you're comparing yourself to other people, it's a useless task. There's 0 point in it. And unless you have unless your lives are complete mirrors of the other person every step of the way, every moment that led you to where you are, comparing yourself is completely a useless task. Okay. So, my friends, I hope that this is helpful, because I know, again, I still go through bouts of imposter syndrome, especially when I'm kind of growing myself and challenging myself to reach a next level or to serve like already high earning clients. And so many things can bring it up for me. And the goal of today is simply to normalize this experience that you might be having, and just know that it's not something you correct once and it disappears forever. It's probably going to come up for you repeatedly. And this is just one of those mindset hurdles that you get to continuously navigate. I think for my clients, there's so many benefits, obviously, to what we do and to being in my program. But this constant conversation around the mind and the energetics of business is such a powerful thing, in addition to the action steps and the strategy. So I would love for you to let me know how this resonates. I would love for you to let me know if this is helpful. If you've had imposter syndrome, you can let me know over in my free Facebook group, Authentic Conversion, Organic Six-Figure Fitness Business. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.